literally just wrap my hair up in preparation to get ready to mow the lawn, do some weed whacking, get rid of some weeds around the house, all sorts of just like normal everyday stuff. And I see this breaking news that apparently CENTCOM just published video of us firing guided missiles and taking out the engine room of a vessel, an Iranian flagged vessel that seemed to be on its way to port. Let's check out this video, and then let's just talk about how this is clearly an escalation and how I don't think that this is going to lead to talks this week. But I also could be completely wrong.
Motor vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
Okay, we gave the flare. Now we're getting anything. Be ready.
You know, it's crazy because you can clearly hear the Navy first giving them a verbal warning, then they gave them the horns, then apparently they gave them the flare. They gave them all sorts of warnings as like, hey, yeah, you might want to go ahead and just wrap it up and stop the way that you're going. You're not going to be breaking through this naval blockade. This is clearly an escalation. Is this going to lead to the peace talks? I don't think that's going to be the way it goes. I don't foresee that as being something that happens in the near future. So we first got word of this from the president, and the president says the U.S. Navy destroyer USS Spruance intercepted Iranian flag Tosca in the Gulf of Oman. The vessel is now in U.S. custody. He has a very long message here, but basically says today the Iranian flag ship, nearly 900 feet long, weighing as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade, and it did not go very well for them. He talks about the ship intercepted the Tosca in the Gulf of Oman and gave them fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks, blowing a hole in their engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Tosca is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of their prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of their ship, and we're now seeing what's on board. And so here's the thing that what all this means, if you want to kind of know. Oil prices are going to rise. This could lead to escalation. We could see retaliatory strikes coming from Iran. We're already seeing that Brent crude oil prices have gone up 5% today. They're rising near $96 a barrel. For crude oil prices here in the States, they're near $90 a barrel. Futures open later on tonight. The market's open tomorrow. And I don't see how this leads to de-escalation. I think we're falling into an escalation trap. The easiest win for us is just stop and leave the area. Is that going to happen? No. It's going to look like an L. And if we don't get their nuclear weapon, anything that we do is going to look like an L. So at this point, I mean, how bad of an L do we want to take? I am, I switched to all electric, okay, for my mowing and all that other type of stuff. But in all seriousness, there's so many things that this could lead to quick miscalculations. This could lead into just so many different things that we're just not 100% forecasting right now. But here's the thing is I'm also not a big fan of the TikTok. I don't want to know as an American, we shot their engine room. I don't want to necessarily see the video immediately. I would much rather hear from the Iranians and we say that they're lying. What I mean by that is we are disclosing our capabilities that we can take a 45 millimeter, I think that's or a rail gun or whatever they hit them with, and we hit them in their engine room with that much specificity. That lets the enemy know our capability. I'd much rather say we took it out, let folks guess, did we board it? Did we do this? Did we do that? Versus we simply disclosing like a TikTok. It really feels like an NFL game. And we're disclosing the play-by-play. How does that go? I don't see that as being like the best course of action. We're already getting reports that the Iranians have fired and targeted drones. We're getting this from Fatas Network. Iran says they have targeted some American military ships with drones in response to the U.S. intercepting and seizing the Tosca in the Gulf of Oman. Now, reportedly, this is The vessel itself was heading to the Iranian port. We seized it in international waters because I think if it was the other way around, it could have sparked World War III. Because if it was an Iranian vessel with things on board that belong to China, then we're immediately involving them. So is that exactly a good thing that I guess it was a maybe empty vessel or a vessel that at least didn't have things like oil headed to China? Maybe that keeps escalation from happening. But, we got reports that talks were supposed to happen this week, specifically on like Wednesday and Thursday, maybe as early as Tuesday. And the Iranians, specifically the leader of their parliament, is like, yeah, I'm not participating in those. We consider your naval blockade as an act of war. And until you're fully complying with the full terms of the ceasefire, we're not going to do that. Now, the president is saying that they're already sending some folks out to Pakistan. They're ready to the negotiations. I don't see how this does anything but lead to more escalations. I stopped watching the NASCAR race for this. I was about to get ready to cut the grass for this. And I really think that we need to look at the importance of what all this means, because I just talked about yesterday that the U.S. military was preparing to board Iranian-linked oil tankers and seize commercial vessels in international waters. This is more than just boarding the ship. We fired upon the ship, taking out their engine room. Now, the only way to seem to move that vessel is going to be with tugboats or make repairs, like it's under our control. But what now? Let's just say that over the course of the next month, we take out 15 900-foot vessels and they become under our possessions. Who has to deal with that? Merchant Marines, the Department of Logistics Agency, DLA. Like, who has to deal with that? That's the number one thing. Number two, legality wise, what do we do with the stuff on board? Number three, do you really think that's going to bring Iran to their knees? I don't know if that's going to be so. We do know that the IRGC has a dark fleet. We do know there's a dark fleet that belongs to the Russians and a part of Europe as well. But I don't see how this leads to a plausible immediate solution. There's also reports coming from the Wall Street Journal that when the F-15 was shot down a couple of weeks ago, the president was furious. He was yelling around the White House. He was talking about Jimmy Carter and talking about that lost in the election and the Iran hostage crisis. And he didn't want the same thing to happen. And we're getting reports that the military literally kept him out the room so that he would not give them influence decisions to do stuff immediately. Now, is that true? I don't know. We shall see. But I do know that we're going to see crude oil prices jump. The hopes of seeing your prices of your stuff go down are like slimmer than happening than sooner than later. And we're already getting reports that they're going to do more retaliations from Iran. The Iran military spokesman says Iran will soon respond to and retaliate against the armed piracy by the United States Army. This is clearly an escalation. Is it an escalation trap? I'm not really sure, but we're seeing threats, and this could lead to total war. I talked about total war a couple of weeks ago. This just seems to bring us higher within that totem pole of going to total war. And I don't know if this is the way that we should be going. A lot of people do believe that it is prudent that Iran does not have a military weapon, I being one of them. However, I don't know if it should have been us up in this thing making that stuff happen, because there's so much shit here that we could be dealing with versus over there. Gas could possibly soar upwards of $7, $8, $9, $10 a gallon in some states. And we once again could have if we decide to go full total war against Iran, the end result will be a refugee crisis that Europe and the rest of the world would just blow your mind. Imagine 90 million people immediately being blown back to the Stone Age. Well, those people are going to migrate. They're going to go places. Some of them are going to be pissed. That could, we can give birth to new terrorists, et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't know if that's going to be the way for us. Okay. I myself am just going to enjoy the rest of the day, slap some headphones on. Hopefully none of our service members are hurt, because I want us to get all the tactical wins. Okay. So if Admiral Bradley tells us that we need to do some type of tactical mission, I want us to get a W on that. the strategic decisions that come from the SecDef, SecWar, and from the president. Those are the things that we Americans are allowed to challenge and wonder where we're going with that different stuff. But maybe I'm completely wrong. And maybe you should just say, X, get to your goddamn lawn. You don't know what you're talking about. All right, that's fair. First time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.